All right, welcome everybody. It's great to see everybody out there. Before we get started, just give a thanks to Healthy Living Magazine. Candide, of course, put a lot of this action together. We are international. Go ahead, yeah, you can do that. Now wait a minute, you can't have half of you doing that. You guys got to join them. Ready? There you go. Nicely done. Okay. Also, Santi Hill is where I have a hat. Go ahead, you can do that. Yeah. Good Health Natural Foods. Now, you know what we got to do now. Now, you're creating this situation where you have to applaud everybody, because if there's somebody you don't recognize, they can't applaud themselves, you know. All right, and Dolores McLaughlin in Tranquility Skincare. Joe's Liquor Store. Exxon and Mobil. No, I'm just kidding. All right, first thing we're going to have you do is everybody's going to stand up just for a moment. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a very simple exercise called Building the Mountain of Spiritual Marriage. Hands like so. And you're just going to gently and slowly bring them up right under your chin. And then right back down again, nice and slowly. Beautifully done. Let's do that again. Up nice and slowly. And back down again. This time we're going to inhale as we come up. Exhale as we come down. Always inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. One more. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. We'll do the last one. Up. And back again. Wonderful exercise. Great job. Let's do one other one. Let's do smoothing the path of life. Hands out like so. And just as if we were smoothing our path of life. Nice and easy. Great. Let's inhale as we come in. Exhale as we go out. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. One more. In. And out. One last exercise. Everybody open their arms. Put your chest forward. Close your eyes just for a moment. And let's envision that all of our highest wishes and most sacred intentions are pouring forth from the universe and filling up our hearts. Loading up, filling up with the highest of intentions. All your wishes, hopes, and dreams being acknowledged by your mind, by your spirit, by your soul, and thus by the universe. Fill up. Nobody leaves with any shortages. Fill up. And now give yourselves a nice round of applause. Beautifully done. Actually, I wanted to start off, if I may, just reading a little piece from my first book, The Wu Wei. It's funny, you know, you write a book and 20 years later you forget everything you said. But I was working with an editor, Nina Diamond, and we're sort of putting together a whole new series of books. We're updating all the books, and we're going to release all those books through a publishing house. And she said, "That is a marvelous story." I said, "What story?" She said, "The story about the zombie." I said, "What story about the zombie?" She said, "You wrote it." I said, "I better go back over that and read it." And it really is exactly pertinent to what we're going to talk about tonight, so I'd like to share it with you. And it was told actually by author Robert Fritz, who wrote a book entitled The Path of Least Resistance. And it truly illustrates the humorous side of the dilemma that we're going to talk about and the solution that we're going to talk about tonight. So I hope you enjoy this. There was a man who woke one day convinced that he was a zombie. When he told his wife he was a zombie, she tried to talk him out of this outrageous opinion of his. "You're not a zombie," she said. "I am a zombie," he answered. "Now what makes you think you're a zombie?" she asked rhetorically. "Don't you think zombies know that they're zombies?" he answered with great sincerity. His wife realized she was not getting anywhere, so she called his mother, told her what was going on. His mother tried to help. "I'm your mother. Wouldn't I know if I gave birth to a zombie?" "You didn't," he explained. "I became a zombie later. I didn't raise my son to be a zombie, or especially to think he's a zombie," his mother pleaded. "Nonetheless, I am a zombie," he said, unmoved by his mother's appeal to his identity and sense of guilt. Later that day, his wife called in their minister to talk to her husband. "You are not a zombie. You're probably going through a midlife crisis. You're trying to be something that you're not." "Zombies don't have midlife crisis," was all the man replied. The minister recommended a psychiatrist. The wife got an emergency appointment, and within an hour the husband was in a psychiatrist's office. "So you think you're a zombie?" the psychiatrist asked. "I know I'm a zombie," the man answered. "Tell me, do zombies bleed?" the psychiatrist asked. "Of course not," the man said. "Zombies are the living dead. They don't bleed." The man was a little annoyed at the psychiatrist's patronizing question. "Well, watch this," said the psychiatrist. As he picked up a pin, he took the man's finger, made a tiny pinprick. The man looked at his finger with great amazement and said nothing for 3 to 4 minutes until he finally uttered, "What do you know?" the man finally said. "Zombies do bleed." The point of that story is that we all have a conception of what we are, of who we are, and that becomes our reality. That story is a silly little story, but it really brings about a very powerful message that the mind creates the reality within itself. The conscious mind decides whatever forms bear reality, and the subconscious mind takes it all very seriously. Whatever your subconscious mind believes becomes your reality. The key really here is that we have a great deal of power that we don't really know that we have. You know, for so many years, I've watched patient after patient come in my office. Tens of thousands of people. And each time that I sit with somebody, I can't help but see that pills only go so far. And food only goes so far. And we know that it's important to eat right, of course, take care of your body and exercise, etc. But I can't help but see with such transparency of late that everybody has a disconnection with spirit, with their essence, with the higher mind. And you can't keep looking at that time and time again and then simply say to somebody, 500 milligrams. It doesn't work. What really works is trying with all your heart to get people to look into the mirror. I've often said the greatest gift that a healer can give to a patient is a mirror. There is nothing more profound than the self within the self that is yet to be identified with in the case of illness. And I always say illness really isn't illness, it's dis-ease. All disease begins with dis-ease, and dis-ease begins in the mind. The concept of who we are is something we have to work our way back to. When we're born, we are who we are. We are one with ourself. We're complete. We go through a process of inculcation. We go through a process of sophistication, education. And all those are important to survive, but they seem to hail a cost on our prosperity. Surviving is something we're good at. Prosperity is something we usually tend to forget. And it's really essential that we understand that that prosperity begins within the concept of self-identification. just want to read one quick little statement before we get started tonight that I wrote, that I put together for this presentation. There's much more to all of us than the way we are living will allow us to see. Much more than just personality and biology, we're a complex blend of quantum energy, emotion, spirit, and soul. Our mind and our body are unified in communication with each other. They record and weigh every event and all stimuli that enters into our field of possibility. Together our mind and body form opinions about virtually everything before us and within us. They never stop talking to us about how we are, and who we aren't. They speak in terms of emotions, heart rate, dreams, sweaty palms, muscle strength, and even immunity. Through a highly sensitive nerve network, the mind and body form the perfect biofeedback machine. Our greatest untapped resource is the endless flow of information that is communicated between our mind and our body. Yet both we, as well as our systems of science and medicine, continue to exhibit a lack of awareness of and a lack of faith in our own ability to provide ourselves with trustworthy information regarding our wholeness and our wellness. In a recent television interview, I was asked, "What do you think is the biggest problem with modern medicine today?" My answer was simple. You and I are the biggest problem with modern medicine today. You see, all systems of medicine are about two things: diagnosis and treatment. And of course, the earlier the intervention, the better the prognosis for recovery. The best forms of diagnosis and treatment are therefore preventive. There's an ancient Chinese saying that any doctor who waits until a condition becomes severe before treating it is like a soldier who waits to cast his weapons when the enemy is at the door. This wisdom was espoused to by primitive forebears some 3,000 years ago, yet the most sophisticated culture in the history of the world remains absent and unaccounted for regarding its commitment to preventive health care. We are programmed to seek care not from self, but rather from other. And we are inclined to seek it when it is often too late. We've become codependents, out of touch, and out of time with ourselves. The best thing we can do to revolutionize modern medicine is to get involved preventively on an ongoing, day-to-day basis at the most sensitive, conscious level. The best thing each of us can do to improve health care in America is learn to, listen to, and trust in our precious selves. There is much more to all of us than the way we are living allows us to see. Tonight we'll take a glimpse at the miracle of the unseen you. Let's start off with the slides. Okay. I came here to change your mind about the power of a changed mind. Most of us don't really appreciate the power of a changed mind, or the potential power of a changed mind. I just wanted to go over a couple, when you think about the great resources that we have, brain facts. The brain is comprised of 1 trillion cells, 100 billion neurons, equal to the same number of stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Think about that. You have the equal number of neurons in your brain to all the stars in the entire Milky Way galaxy. The left hemisphere has 186 million more neurons than the right hemisphere, which is kind of an interesting factoid that was just recently discovered. There are 10,000 synapses per neuron, so you got 100 billion neurons within a trillion cells, and there's 10,000 synapses in each one. That's the constant flow of communication that's taking place within your brain and between your brain and your body all day, every day. Each neuron is capable of 200 calculations. 200 calculations. Do you know it only takes one single neuron to establish a long-term memory? One single neuron for a long-term memory. Neurons multiply at a rate of 250,000 per day, or per minute rather, during pregnancy. Our brains produce 23 watts of power when we're awake, enough to turn on a light bulb. The amount of electrical impulses generated in one day by a single human brain is greater than all the telephones in the entire world. And there's a lot of telephones out there. The slowest speed generated between two brain neurons that communicate and talk to each other constantly is 260 miles an hour. The brain uses 20% of all the body's energy while only making up 2% of its weight. 4 weeks after conception, the human embryo is producing 8,000 new nerve cells per second. By the beginning of the second trimester, the brain is producing about 173 billion synaptic connections every single day. So the universe said, we're going to load you up and provide you with this incredible potential for power. Incredible potential for power. This is where all the emphasis is in your electrical system. By the age of 2, 67% of all nutrition is being directed exclusively to the brain. This is a remarkable new discovery in science. Your other brain, the little brain within the heart. Most people are not aware of the fact that they have a brain in their heart. It's called the intrinsic cardiac ganglia. In 1991, Dr. J. Andrew Armour first identified the intrinsic cardiac ganglia is the little brain within the heart. Armour's research at the HeartMath Institute in Boulder, Colorado, discovered that the brain and heart's intrinsic ganglia constantly dialogue with each other. The discovery of this two-way communication established that you feel as you think as you feel, and you feel as you think you feel. You'll be quizzed on that in a moment. Let's back up one here. Let's talk about entrainment and disentrainment. All anatomical systems in your body are regulated by your intrinsic cardiac ganglia. In other words, you have this heart that has a brain. Okay? Your beating heart thinks. It thinks. It has opinions about virtually everything and anything, and it constantly dialogues with your big brain. Now, interestingly enough, a lot of the research in this area suggests that when you and I are thinking from the emotional perspective, we're thinking from the intrinsic cardiac ganglia. So what happens is we're constantly deciding where we're safe, where we're unsafe. We're constantly deciding whether or not something appeals to us. When we muscle test people, I always tell everybody that it's all about that dialoguing between your intrinsic cardiac ganglia and your brain. You know, the idea that your heart's deciding whether or not whatever stimuli you're exposing yourself to, whatever food, whatever vitamin, whatever stimuli, whatever questions. Joe, come on up for a second. So when we take somebody and we say essentially, resist good and strong, and we say essentially number 1, number 2, number 3. And if I say, for example, red, green, blue, orange. Okay? So his brain here and his brain here are dialoguing at 260 miles per hour. And they're dialoguing about opinions that they have based on those stimuli that I hit them with. So if I say things like strawberries, if I say blueberries, if I say blackberries, if I say chocolate. Do you like chocolate, Joe? Resist good and strong. All right, so if I say chocolate, and then if I give a concept to brain and heart brain that qualifies that. In other words, chocolate is a negative, but between 1 and 10, if minus 10 were the furthest outreach of negative, what would chocolate be? Minus 1, minus 2. Not the worst thing. Let's do that again. Let's go to another area. Let's talk about egg whites, egg yolks. Let's talk about cheese. All right, let's do that again, cheese. So now I'm going to say cheese between a minus 1 and a minus 10. Cheese minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, 4, 5, 6, minus 7. So cheese at a minus 7 is something that the dialoguing between the intrinsic ganglia in his heart, in his brain, essentially got a negative concept for. And they communicated that through his nervous system instantly. Thank you so much. So the idea is that you're constantly dialoguing. Constantly. Your nervous system has to have an opinion about everything. Like we always say, listen, you're going in and out of entrainment constantly, all day long. You watch a television show, you watch a movie. Forgive me if I walk in front of this. You watch movies, you read books, you read magazines. You have conversations with people, you have debates, you have arguments. You have wonderful conversations, you have horrible conversations with people. You have all kinds of different exchanges that take place throughout the course of the day. You have dreams, you have nightmares. Your brain and your heart's brain constantly dialogue and have to pass judgment on every one of those scenarios. Every one of those scenarios. You have to have an opinion. It's all about your survival. We were born to produce a system of awareness that has to be tuned in even when you're sleeping. Even when you're sleeping. And it has to have a power over your biology. It has to influence your health, your well-being. When you have a dream that's a nightmare, it could be the silliest nightmare in the world. It could be completely insensible. And your sensible brain says, I can't believe I woke up at 2:30 in the morning after having a dream that I was being chased by a dinosaur. I mean, they've been dead for millions of years, extinct for millions. What is this crazy heart rate thing for a dream like that? It's nuts. It doesn't make sense. Of course it's crazy. It doesn't make sense to your conscious mind. Your logical mind says, that's crazy. That is not your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind says, we don't know what crazy is. We have to take everything literally. Our job is to keep you alive. And if you tell us that dinosaurs are big and strong and scary, we believe you. And if you see it in your dreams, we're not taking any chances. We're elevating your heart rate, we're going to get you running, even if you're lying flat on your back in bed. So you move in and out of entrainment constantly. The entrainment power of your thoughts, it only takes 7/10 of a second for a negative stimuli to cause anatomical disentrainment. So when I said to Joe, chocolate, 7/10 of a second, his body was saying, look, we just, we don't get a good feeling about that. Okay? Can we trust your defense system? Well, that's your problem. If you don't trust your defense system, that's something you got to work out. But I believe you have a defense system for a reason. Nature gave it to you for a reason. I think you've been talked out of it. And I think part of the whole cultural approach to medicine, as I just read a few minutes ago, is to talk you out of awareness of yourself. There is a healer within. There's an awareness within. And there are ways to listen to it. So the process scientifically is called entrainment. And entrainment is a reflection of what takes place dialogue-wise between your brain and the intrinsic cardiac ganglia. Every moment of every day you are either in entrainment or you're out of entrainment. That's what that's about. So again, an anatomical system in your body regulated by your intrinsic cardiac ganglia or your IgG and brain. When your ICG and brain do not perceive a threat to your equilibrium, they relay a balanced neuromuscular signal to all anatomical systems. This is called entrainment. When they perceive a threat to your equilibrium, they send an imbalanced neuromuscular signal to all anatomical systems. This is called disentrainment. Okay? So it speaks. It speaks. Your brain and your brain speak through your nervous system. Your mind dictates to your brain and your ICG. They relay to your nerves and muscles, and they relay to the rest of your body. So there's a relay system. There's a communication system. Your power to change your power, neuroplasticity. 3 landmark studies in neuroplasticity. BRDU research at the Salk Institute, Fred Gage, Peter Erickson, 1993. The research of Fred Gage and Peter Erickson at the Salk Institute in 1993 revolutionized science position on the brain's potential for change. Prior to their breakthrough research, it was commonly believed that the brain was hardwired and not capable of changing. Now, a lot of people still don't really get that. There are a lot of scientists, there are a lot of physicians, there are a lot of medical people that just don't get that. But as of 1993, it was a whole new ballgame. Now, for years we used to think, oh, my mother does that, my father does that, I can't help it. Those classic words, I can't help it. I can't help it. Just the way I am. My mother was that way, my father was that way. It's a genetic thing. I love that one. It's a genetic, everything, toss it out to genes, bad gene pool. Well, in 1993, we found that that was erroneous. That's not true. And what they found, basically, the BRDU research. BRDU is actually an interesting study they did. What they did is they basically found a number of patients, and they brought them into the Salk Institute. They were terminally ill patients in their 70s and their 80s. Terminally ill in their 70s and 80s. And they used BRDU. BRDU is basically a cancer drug, and it's actually a tag. They inject this little BRDU into cancer patients to be able to identify with cell changes. Okay, so if there's any kind of metastases and the cancer is expressing itself at a higher level and the cancer is growing, the BRDU tags will display that. So Gage and Erickson decided that they were going to use BRDU to tag brain cells in the hypothalamus. And what they did is they did hypothalamic sections of these people. They said, look, after you die, these are terminally ill patients in their 70s and 80s. After you die, we're going to section your brain to see if there's any growth. Because what we're going to do until you die is try to teach you new things. And see if we can activate brain cells. And see if we can actually activate new neurons. New neurons, brand new. Like a 12-year-old, not like an 85-year-old with terminal illness. What a great discovery that'll be if we can prove to the world that 85-year-old people with terminal illnesses have the same new neuron development as a 12-year-old. Then we can't tell everybody it's something I can't help. I'm like my mother. That doesn't work anymore. So what they found is they basically took these folks and they put them through their educational paces and they engaged in neurobics, neuro-type exercises, neural exercises for the brain, which is what we're going to talk about in a little while. So they engaged them in neurobics, activated centers of the brain at 85 years old, terminal illness, 70 years old. And after they passed away, they sectioned their brain, and lo and behold, the BRDU determined that there was the equal neuron growth and neuron development to a 12-year-old. Okay? You sit down with a 12-year-old in a school environment and teach them, educate them, expand their brains. You produce the same effect with an 80-year-old that you do with a 12-year-old. Okay? Number 2, the intention experiment at the University of Wisconsin, Dr. Richard Davidson. These are the studies that really inspired me. I studied these and read these and really worked with these. I even talked to some folks who were involved in some of these studies. And the Davidson study is the one that really captured my interest the most. Because what they did in the Richard Davidson studies at University of Wisconsin is they took a number of patients, a number of subjects, I should say, and what they did basically is they hooked them up to 256 electrodes, PET scans. And they were reading and mapping their brains. And as they mapped their brains, they determined, for some bizarre reason, that the right prefrontal cortex was loaded. It all lit up. The left prefrontal cortex was silent. There was no flash bulbs. So everything was right brain heavy, right prefrontal heavy. Well, the right prefrontal cortex is anxiety, depression, hopelessness, and despair. So like 90% of these 1,100 people were all lit up in that side of the brain. Can't imagine why. All right, so what is the left prefrontal cortex that was so remissed? The left prefrontal cortex is limitless belief in oneself. Nothing can hold me down. Positive thinking, limitless thinking, expansive thinking, growth, evolution, transformation, that's your left prefrontal cortex, shrunk down to next to nothing in about 90% of these 1,100 subjects. So they were really puzzled by this, and who was in town at the time in Madison, Wisconsin, doing a tour at the University of Wisconsin with the Dalai Lama. So they got this great idea that they'd hook up the monks and see what their brains look like. You know what their brains look like. Okay? So what they found, of course, is they found that the Dalai Lama's monks, when they got hooked up, had a right and left prefrontal cortex that was remarkably expanded. They found that they were producing brainwave bursts that were called gamma brainwave bursts that they didn't even think humanly possible. They didn't think they've ever witnessed a gamma brainwave burst. But they actually did witness gamma brainwave bursts with the monks. Now, gamma brainwave bursts are really interesting because you and I think of meditation, and we think of something that's very calming, low blood pressure, relax. That wasn't happening. A gamma brainwave burst is almost what you'd find with an athlete during the middle of the World Series. Really focused on that zone with intense focus and intense intention manifest. This is going to happen. That's what you're talking about with gamma brainwave bursts. So the monks would go into their meditation in the morning, and then they'd hook them up to these electrodes, and they'd find gamma brainwave bursts. And say, wait. First of all, it's wonderful that we're seeing both right and left side lit up, but what is it with these brainwave bursts? We've never seen anything like that. They said, what kind of meditation do you do? They said, we do a compassion meditation. Well, tell us more about the compassion meditation. We envision ourselves holding the world in our arms, and we envision ourselves healing the world like there's no way for it to not happen. The world gets healed when we hold it. Okay? No way around it. This world's getting healed when I'm holding it. Okay, that's the impression that the researchers got from the monks. So they got the idea that these brainwave bursts were all about their intense level of intention. They call it compassion meditation. But I would call it intense intention meditation. So anyway, they said, okay, wonder if we did some kind of work along these lines with the mere mortals. Bring them back in after maybe 12, 16 weeks of trying to retrain their brains. So they brought them all back in, and they said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to basically give you some exercises. We're going to give you meditation-like exercises just for 10 minutes a day. If you're in your cars, if you're in your homes, we just want 10 minutes a day of you saying, I am healthy, I am happy. And people would raise their hands and say, well, Dr. Davidson, what if I'm not? What if I'm not? I mean, what if I'm miserable? I mean, I'm not going to be able to hear myself saying I'm happy and I'll feel stupid. I'll feel silly. And he said, that's okay. You feel silly, just do it. Because your subconscious mind doesn't mind getting your heart rate up over dinosaurs, does it? Your subconscious mind is really, really literal. It's literal. So whatever you tell your subconscious mind is what it records. Okay? If you tell your subconscious mind in the middle of a dream that you're being chased by a dinosaur that's been extinct for 4 million years, it's going to take it literal. Your heart rate's going up, you're going to perspire. If you tell your subconscious mind that you're happy and you're healthy, whether you are or not is irrelevant. You're going to be. And that's exactly what they found out, because over 16 weeks of 10 minutes of that a day, and 83% of that group started to expand the left prefrontal cortex. Okay? But here's the really interesting part of that equation. It's all about practice. Davidson uses the word in all of his work. Practice, practice, practice. So the more you meditate, or the more you utter positive words, the more your subconscious mind sets up those programs and converts them into your reality program. Your subconscious mind is waiting constantly to take direction from your conscious mind. Whatever you tell it, it believes. And if you tell it something once, it kind of believes it. If you tell it twice, it believes it more. And that's what they established in that study. Also, Helen Mayberg at Emory University 2003, the Deep Brain Stimulation Study, another remarkable study. And what they did in these studies is they basically were looking at folks who were depressed and who are on antidepressants. And they essentially found that folks who are on antidepressants, again, similar to what Davidson found, their left prefrontal cortex was all shrunk up. But you know what they found? They found that the antidepressants actually started to mimic expanding that left prefrontal cortex. The antidepressants started to mimic that left prefrontal cortex. So the idea that you can actually stimulate the brain with a pharmaceutical for a short period of time only, which is why a lot of the studies on antidepressants suggest that they're effective for 6 months for the most part. Their highest level of effectiveness is within the first 6 months, which is why they often change medication. Try another one, try another one, try another one. Because you're constantly trying to trick the brain, reprocess, reformat. The brain is always looking to get reformatted. People think about exercising their body, they don't think about exercising their brain. Every new thing you say to your brain, every new thing you do to your brain is soaking it up and it's dealing with it. And it's formatting around it, and it's processing around it. So what she found that you take those same folks that were on antidepressants, instead of taking them into another cycle, when they started to kind of curve down and the medicine wasn't working anymore, instead of shooting another medicine in the picture, she thought, let's catch them at the bottom of that curve, hit them with some new thinking programs like Davidson did, exercise their brains, give them some positive visualization exercises, and see if we can't pop them back up. And it did. And she found that there was virtually no difference in terms of where they ended up in the reprocessing and reformatting of brain waves. So those are the three studies. One of the things I wanted to say, too, is that I really became fascinated with those three studies to the point where I wanted to engage some of that work myself. And in the corporate environment, over the last 5 years, I put together a number of programs with hundreds of people, both factory folks, executives, that were basically similar type programs, brain exercise programs. And I tried one really interesting approach because for the first 3.5 years I was there, 3 or 4 years I was there, we were doing nutrition programs, and we were lowering people's cholesterol and triglycerides and raising up their HDLs with food and fish oil capsules and no medicines, and everybody was thrilled about that. And then I sat down with some of the people there and I said, I have a much better idea. We're not going to stop there. I said, I got a great idea that we put together these positive thinking programs, and then I teach neuroplasticity exercises in brain, what I call redesigning the mind and redesigning the brain. I say we redesign these people's brains, redesign their way of thinking, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 3 months, 6 months programs, whatever, and then we'll recheck them afterwards. Well, what we did in the first program that we worked with a group of 39 people in the first group. Okay, and after 6 months of these 39 people, 69% lowered their total cholesterol. Now, they didn't do anything dietarily. No pills, no diet. This had nothing to do with pills, exercise, or diet. Okay? 69% after 6 months lowered total cholesterol, 79% lowered total triglycerides, 41% increased their good cholesterol, 64% lowered their bad cholesterol, 69% lowered their cardiac risk ratio, and there was an average loss of 17 pounds. And that was among 39 people. Did nothing with pills, nothing with food, nothing with exercise. We redesigned their mind over a period of 6 months. Similar to what we just saw here. So neuroplasticity research has discovered that when two events occur in the brain at the same time, they create a new neuronal connection. So those neurons that we saw on the first couple brain fact pages that are so busy, so active, just looking to get programmed, any time that there's two primary actions of neuroplasticity, they're basically creating a new neuronal connection. So here's a connection that never was. And when I say I am healthy, I am happy, I love my life, there's got to be a connection there. If I don't go back and reroute that and support that tomorrow, it separates. If I do it again tomorrow, it holds together. The next day, the next day, the next day, the next day, the signal grows, the signal expands, and those signals will become more plural. Okay? The two primary actions of neuroplasticity, synaptic pruning, which is deleting old connections, and neural processing, which is generating new connections through learning. And that's basically what we're talking about. So, we would teach these people, we prune the old stuff. In fact, one of the programs that I taught, that I put together for the folks in the corporate group, was what I call erase and replace. Erase and replace. Okay? Erase and replace is a simple game. I just say, okay, look at here. I want everybody in this group for the next month. Of course, I lied to them. The next month. And then I did it again the next month. But I said, for the next month, I want everybody in this group to really be super aware, super conscious of internal dialogue and external dialogue that's negative. Any negative dialogue. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's your best friend, your husband, your wife, your neighbor. I don't care if it's television, if it's radio. I don't care if it's a movie you go to. I don't care if it's a magazine or a book you're reading. I want you to have radar for everything negative. And when you see it, you immediately grab it and you delete it, erase it, and replace it with whatever positive stuff you want to replace it with. Okay? So I said, I want everybody in here to really work at that. And then a month later, of course, I hit them with it again. But each week that we met, I asked them, I said, okay, show of hands, how many people are really paying attention to this stuff? How many people are doing their erase and replace? Everybody in that room raised their hand, honestly. And I wasn't really certain whether they'd comply or whether it's, these are factory folks saying, what is this guy, nuts? They did it. Every one of them did it. Anyway, I developed a question and answer period for them, just to give you a sampling of some of the questions. I am less depressed, true or false. My depression is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, or 100% improved. I'm less anxious, true or false, etc. So those are kind of how the questions went. These are the responses that I tabulated at the end of the program on the 24th of June last year. This was actually a 12-week program that I did with this group. There were 30 respondents, 64% after 12 weeks. Just the erase and replace, okay? 64% said they felt less depressed. 63% said they felt less anxious. 71% said they feel more in control of their thoughts. 71% said they feel more in control of their emotions. 86% said they are more aware of the negative thinking within them and around them. 100% said they feel more empowered in their lives. 100% said they felt more focused on their goals. 100% said they felt more hopeful about attaining their goals. 100% said they feel more empowered in their life. 100% said they feel more positive about accepting full responsibility for their life. And 100% said they intend to continue practicing what they've already learned in the program. Thanks. So here we take a very simple, small sample at a very cutting-edge time where work is just starting to happen. I always tell everybody, look, when you dig and find out where the next door in front of you is, and if you're not doing that, by the way, you're not doing what you came for. There's a door in front of you. I say failure is a myth. Failure is a myth. Whatever it is that you're waiting for is waiting for you. Don't believe in the myth. There's a door in front of you. Where is it? Make it a game. It's a game called life. Find the door in front of you. And when you find the door in front of you, and you enjoy where you are after you get inside that door, you can express a remarkable faith in the universe by knowing there's another door to go yet. There's always another door. So when you read research like this, and you put down that magazine and say, that's incredible stuff. Wow, people are really changing their mind. They're redesigning their lives. That's miraculous. Isn't that great? All right, now I got to go take the garbage out. No, what you got to do is you've got to basically get involved in that process. When you read these studies are inviting you. Don't wait for science. Let the science inspire you. Go through that next door. There's some wonderful, wonderful lessons to be learned in the process. It's a magnificent, magnificent process. We're just beginning to find out who we are and where we are. Neurons that fire together wire together. Neurons that are out of sync fail to link. Neurons that you don't use, you will lose. That's what neuroplasticity is all about. Current research has established that neuroplasticity is key to the development of new treatments for brain damage from stroke, trauma, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cerebral palsy, as well as dyslexia and OCD. In Italy right now, as we speak, we're going to talk about Dr. Fabrizio in a few minutes, but Dr. Fabrizio has done some remarkable work, but he's doing some work in Italy where he's actually successfully treating people with Parkinson's with neuroplasticity. No medicines, neuroplasticity. Through neuroplasticity, skills lost can be relearned, skills decline can be slowed down as well as reversed, and new function can be gained. But can health and disease actually be mediated through neuroplasticity? That is the burning $64,000 question. Your mind tells your brain tells your body. Placebo, nocebo, and the power of expectancy. Every single one of your thoughts produces a matching chemistry. I want you to really think about what that says. every single one of your thoughts produces a matching chemistry. Every thought that you think has a unique trigger for your chemistry. Because you produce infinite numbers of chemical possibilities in your body. You know, you don't have a finite number of chemistries that you produce. They're infinite. They're infinite. You may be producing chemistries today that you never produced before, and chemistries tomorrow that you never produced before. And that's status quo. That's how the body works. But every thought that you think really has an influence about what those chemistry potentials are. So every thought that you think produces a matching chemistry. The energy from every thought either produces a strengthening or weakening influence on your chemistry. Placebo thoughts, placebo is Latin, of course, for I shall please, and those placebo thoughts will please your body. Examples, Dr. Bruce Moseley, Baylor School of Medicine Orthopedic Surgery Study, 2002. Dr. Moseley ran this orthopedic study. There was a camera crew from a local television network that asked if they could come in and film it. So he said, absolutely. So they came in and they filmed it. And they saw these patients coming into the study in wheelchairs and crutches and canes, all crippled up. And he divided them into 3 different groups. One group was a group that was actually to receive real viable surgery. A second group was going to get bogus surgery. No surgery at all. They basically make an incision in a knee or an elbow, sew them back up. So as far as they knew, they had surgery, but they never really knew. Third group, they basically made an incision and they flushed it with saline solution just to get some of the inflammatory materials out of there. So there's your 3 groups. At the end of this research, what they determined was that they had 56 and 57% success rate in all 3 groups. Real surgery produced 57%, fake surgery 56%, and the saline surgery 56%. Okay? So real surgery produced 1% more results. They didn't tell any of these folks until 2 years after the study was completed. The camera crew has a detailed film of all those folks playing basketball, tennis, being interviewed saying, I feel great, who never even received surgery and found out 2 years later. Okay? So the power of expectancy produces a matching chemistry. And that's the truth about what's being studied now regarding placebo. We see Dr. Fabrizio Benedetto, we just talked about him a moment ago, treating Parkinson's patients with placebo based on expectancy, designed to alter neurobiology, and they're having remarkable success in their research right now as we speak. How about nocebo? Nocebo is Latin for I shall harm, and nocebo thoughts will harm your body. Examples, Clifton Meter, Sam Londy story, 1974. This took place in Nashville, Tennessee. Sam Londy was an insurance man. Clifton Meter was a well-known physician down in Nashville. And Sam Londy was diagnosed with an advanced form of liver cancer. He died 2 weeks to the day after his diagnosis. They performed an autopsy and found out that they were mistaken. He never had terminal cancer. So it was kind of a nocebo voodoo response, if you will. Also, Uparello et al., 1968, 48% of 40 asthma patients experienced airway resistance when they were told they were breathing in irritants. They were merely breathing in water vapor. So, again, matching chemistry. Like I said earlier, whatever you tell your subconscious, you will produce a matching chemistry. Okay, remember the sequence. It goes from your mind to your brain to your body. There's a great story at the Roman Catholic Hospital in Washington, D.C. about a gentleman who was the wrong gentleman who was given last rites, and he died right after he was given the last rites, and he was the wrong person. The greatest example of nocebo response is Dr. Bruno Klompfer. I don't know if anybody ever heard of that remarkable story, but that story is probably the most famous story regarding nocebo response. I just want to read this real quickly. In 1950, a new drug called Cribogene had received a tremendous amount of national media attention as a miracle cure for cancer. The American Medical Association and the Food and Drug Administration decided at once to administer extensive trials on the drug. As a part of the trials, a researcher named Dr. Bruno Klompfer was working with a test subject named Mr. Wright, who was riddled with end-stage cancer and given only a few days to live. Wright had orange-sized tumors in his neck, armpits, chest, groin, abdomen, spleen, and liver. His tumors were so advanced that they had to be drained of 2 quarts of substance every day. Wright emotionally pleaded his case, begging to be put on the experimental cribrogen. Soon thereafter, his trials began. Wright's injections commenced on a Friday morning, but he was not expected to live through the weekend. On the following Monday, he was seen up and walking around. Dr. Klopfer reported that his tumors had melted like snowballs on a hot stove and were reduced to half their size in a mere 3 days. 10 days later, Mr. Wright was on his way home. He remained well for 2 months. Then, after reportedly reading a number of news articles that had debunked the drug as ineffective, Wright, who was a logical scientific thinker, had suffered a relapse and was soon readmitted. This time, Dr. Klopfer told Wright that he would give him a new, more powerful version of the drug. Once again, the healing results were swift and miraculous. Remarkably, Klopfer had merely injected plain, sterile water into Wright's body. Nonetheless, he was on his way home, having beat cancer once again. Wright had remained symptom-free for another 2 months until the American Medical Association announced that a nationwide study of cribrogen had found the drug worthless in the treatment of cancer. Mr. Wright died 2 days after reading the results of the study. So when you talk about placebo, nocebo, back and forth, that's the classic cribrogen case. Again, when we think about the way that our bedside manner works with a patient, the way that a doctor talks to a patient, the way that the family talks to the patient, the way they treat them, the kind of persona that is generated, that is created, that becomes actualized. Because as we said a few moments ago, we produce matching chemistries to our thought processes. And that's exactly what Mr. Wright did. Thoughts are boomerangs returning with precision to their source. Choose wisely which ones you throw. The power of your expectancy activates specific vectors in your brain. There's, again, additional research that says when you and I think positive thoughts or negative thoughts, there are specific areas in the brain that become activated. And you can see placebo expectancy activates those 4 centers of the brain. These positive expectancy centers activate the release of powerful corresponding endorphins called opioid and mu-opioid systems that have the power to neutralize pain, produce anti-inflammatory chemistries, and engage the homeostasis power of healing. Endorphin translated means brain morphine. The brain morphine produced in the human brain is 25,000 times more powerful than the pharmaceutical grade of morphine. 25,000 times more powerful. So again, when you feed yourself positive information, you have an incredible chemistry, and that's exactly what we just saw in the cribrogen case. The nocebo, or the negative thought processes, activate a different set of vectors in the brain. Those are the 5 areas that it activates in the brain. These negative expectancy pain centers activate the release of powerful cholecystokinin antagonists in the brain that trigger both degenerative and inflammatory chemistries and engage stress hormone chemistries. What you love, you empower. What you fear, you empower. And what you empower, you attract. Your limitless mind, conscious, subconscious, superconscious. Now we're moving a little bit more from brain to mind. The conscious mind seeks to learn. The conscious mind is where we logically and intellectually seek to learn the basis for all cause and effect. This is where all of our self-talk is generated. The conscious mind is capable of generating 2,000 bits of information per second. Sounds like a lot. The subconscious or unconscious mind believes. The subconscious mind is where we automatically and intuitively dream, feel, remember, and believe all that we think we know. This is where our many day-to-day trance states neurologically reinforce our perceptions of reality within our brains and bodies. The subconscious mind is capable of generating 400 billion bits of information per second. So let's just talk about those two for a moment, because your conscious mind, right after the holidays, can say, I'm going on a diet, that's it. This is the year, January 2nd, I'm getting this thing done, man. But if your subconscious mind is saying, look, you've been telling me for a long time that you really don't want to get this done. You like the donuts too much. Okay, and if that's what you've loaded up your subconscious mind with, you know who's going to win. 400 billion to 2,000, you know who's going to win. Game's over. All right, let's talk about the superconscious mind for a minute. The superconscious mind is the part of our mind that we rarely, if ever, talk about. Science barely ever talks about it. But it's the part of us that knows. The conscious mind seeks to learn, the subconscious mind believes, and the superconscious mind knows. The superconscious mind reflects the highest state of consciousness. It can access all total information from the personal conscious, the personal subconscious, and the collective unconscious mind. It is the knowing self that is inextricably tied to a collective infinite field of intelligence. We do not see things as they are, we see things as we are. That was written in the Talmud. Superconscious mind, transcendental or transcendent consciousness. Carl Jung spoke of the superconscious mind as our connection to the universal collective unconscious. Emerson referred to it as our oversoul. Napoleon Hill called it our infinite intelligence. Edgar Cayce described our innermost self as a stream of consciousness between the spirit and the material realms. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "We live in the lap of an immense intelligence. When we are in its presence, we realize that it is far beyond our human mind." Maslow said that only 1% of us are self-actualized. He described self-actualized people as those people who tap into their innermost mental resources in order to reach their full potential. He said that 100% of us are capable of reaching complete self-actualization. Over 20 years, Napoleon Hill interviewed more than 500 of the world's most successful men and women and concluded that without exception their ability to tap into a higher form of infinite intelligence was the primary reason for their great success in life. Rumi, the great Persian poet, said, "There is someone who looks after us from behind the curtain. In truth, we are not here. This is our shadow." Deepak Chopra concluded with, "Go behind the screen and join whoever is there." Trance states, accessing your superconscious. You are in trance nearly 200 times a day. Okay, you're in trance nearly 200 times a day. Now, a trance is no more than a simple daydream or a song that you keep hearing in your mind. Trance produces brainwave states that are most conducive to long-term learning, memory enhancement, and transformation. Those are the alpha, theta, and delta brainwave states. You have spent most of your life in unconscious negative trance states. One of the keys to self-empowered transformation is to become conscious of your trance states. Trance states are among our greatest untapped potential resources. They are the most fertile ground for seeding our highest personal power. Your mind is most able to cultivate positive, permanent change before you fully awaken and before you fall asleep. There's an ancient Chinese saying that says, "Learn to talk to your dragon flow." Jung says, what this is saying here is, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. But the idea here is that you go into trance 200 times a day and you don't know it. And the real key is, those are the most fertile states for change. So when we talk about the ability to heal a dread disease, we talk about the ability to transform, literally transform your life, to change your life. Your mind is in its most fertile place for reprogramming and reformatting when you're in trance. And you do that 200 times a day. But again, you're doing it unconsciously. So you're not aware of your trance states. So this amazing resource that has the ability to convince your mind whatever you want to convince it. And that's the starting point. What is it that you want? You have to basically know exactly what you want. And if you have a real good idea about what you want, what you're trying to format, what you're trying to produce in your life. I ask people all the time when I work with them, I say, "Okay, what did you come here for?" And they said, "Well, I came here for an appointment." I said, "No, I'm not talking about that. And what did you come here for? What do you want to get done? You want to just make money? You want to you just want to be successful in some material way? Now, there's something more to you than that. What did you come for? Are you in tune with that? Don't limit yourself. You can stretch yourself as far as you want to go. I always tell people, make believe we've got carte blanche, because we do. But you're not used to thinking of yourself as having a wide open door with no limitations. Nobody ever told you that. But I'm telling you, everybody has a wide open door with zero limitations. Zero limitations. You can do whatever you want. But the key is, do you know what you want? Because your first set of limiting thoughts are the ones that say, geez, I don't think I know. Well, of course you know, but you just haven't tapped into the part of you that does. Your trance states are reflective of places where once you figure out what you want, you can plug it in and make it happen. And that's what these studies are, both the informal study of the folks that I worked with and the earlier studies we talked about at the Salk Institute and these placebo, nocebo studies and whatnot. These great, great stories. These are all really great examples of what you and I have access to, but who taps into it? We're just not tapping into it. So we need to really think about these trance states. And that's why I always say, at the very least, I always tell my groups, the very least, just before you wake up and just before you fall asleep, you want to plug something in. Know what you want first. Know exactly what you want. And then plug it in just before you fall asleep, just before you wake up. 5 neuroplasticity brain exercises. Engage your brain, obviously. The more, like we said a little while ago, if you're not using it, you're losing it. Engage your brain with chess, yoga, tai chi, musical instruments, etc. And then somebody says, well, I already play a musical instrument. I said, well, then reverse hands. Try turning the guitar upside down and go left-handed with it. Change your routines. Drive and walk different routes. Sit at different seats at the dinner table. Use non-dominant hand. Writing with the computer mouse. Brushing your teeth. Playing an instrument. Challenge your memory. Leave the shopping list at home. Never use the auto dial on your phone. Listen to 5 minutes of talk radio. Turn it off and recall 3 key points 20 minutes later. Combine your senses. It's all about using more than one sense at the same time. Look up at the stars while listening to music. Sculpt with clay while smelling incense. Exercise your imagination, focusing on submodalities. All that means is use more sensory connections. Imagine your brain becoming ever stronger. This is a great story, too. Dr. Vinoth Ranganathan of the Cleveland Clinic Foundation asked 30 volunteers to imagine strength exercising their pinky finger for 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week for 12 weeks. They measured them, and they found that the group increased their little finger strength by 35%. Imagining it, thinking about it. So again, it's no different than the dinosaur dream. Your heart's going to respond because the flow goes from your mind to your brain, nervous system, and your body. It has to listen. It doesn't have a choice in the matter. 3 transformational mind exercises. I like to study a lot of Richard Bandler's work, neuro-linguistic work. Erase and replace, we talked about that. Commit your awareness to recognizing all negative internal and external dialogue. That's really important. If you get nothing else, work with that. You saw what the results were with the folks that I worked with. In your mind, erase all the resultant negative pictures and attitudes, replace them with positive. Number 2, establish a visual timeline. Picture yourself in the past desiring a specific positive outcome. See yourself taking 3 giant steps forward into your present tense. Finally, picture yourself in this moment as being in the active process of now taking your final 3 steps toward the completion of your journey. So you want to see a timeline with where you came from, where you presently are, and you're not done yet. So you want there to be a flow in your visualization of your life process. Bandler swish pattern. Think of a limiting belief that you want to delete. Focus on the detailed submodalities. And again, submodality is nothing more than sights, sounds, etc. So you want to bring in as many of those sensory connections as you possibly can. Slingshot the negative picture off into the distance until it disappears. Now think of the positive picture you'd like to replace it with. Exaggerate the submodalities and expand the picture so that it becomes brighter and brighter, louder and louder, larger and larger. Recall the positive picture every night before you fall asleep and every morning before you awaken until you make it a reality. Example. I had a woman who was in her late 50s, and she came in. She never even got to the chair coming in the office, and she was crying. I said, oh boy, here we go. So she sat down, and she said, I'm afraid to swim because when I was 7 years old, I went swimming with a dear friend of mine who drowned in front of me, and I've never been in the water since. She said, I'm a grandmother of 2 wonderful kids right now, and the family has invited me to go to Disney World. And this is a huge, huge problem for me because I love these kids. I'm not going to live forever, and I want to go in the water with these kids. These kids don't understand why she won't go in the pool with them. And she can just kind of get by. I'm sick of getting by. I'm not going to be with these kids forever. I'm going in that water. Can you help me? And I said, yeah, I can help you. And I said, one of the things we're going to have to do here is we're going to basically have to have two pictures. I said, the first picture that I want you to envision is I want you to picture your pain. Because you came in with your pain. Your pain is huge. It's big. It has a neural connection. Okay, you're wired. You're encoded. Okay, you're all wired and coded to this pain that you've been carrying for 50 years. I said, it's really, really important that you use that. Okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to see that picture in your mind, but I want you to turn that picture to black and white. You're taking the color out of it. And then I want you to slowly shrink that picture. So you're depreciating it. So you're sending your subconscious a message that you're very gradually shrinking the meaningfulness of that pain. So you shrink that image down, shrink it down, black and white it. And as it shrinks down, you start to send it off and slingshot it off into the distance until it disappears. I said, you want to do that at least once a day as you're falling asleep at night and when you're waking up in the morning. And the minute you get done doing that, as soon as you've completed doing that, I want you to then go to your pleasure vision. Because it's all about the pleasure and the pain. So we're done with the pain vision. We shrunk it. We black and whited it. We've devalued it. Your subconscious is getting that message. It's rewiring. It's hooking up new neuronal systems right now based on the imagery you just hit it with. So now what we want to do is we want you to do the same thing in reverse. I want you to close your eyes and see yourself in Disney World with these kids. Beautiful, balmy weather. You're in that pool. You're holding these kids that you love more than life itself, and you're all crying and smiling and laughing, tears of joy, and it's magical. And I asked her to get into the sensory connections. Can you hear their voices? Can you hear the splashing in their voices? Yeah, I can hear that. Can you hear other children's voices playing, enjoying themselves? Yeah, I can hear that. Throw a seagull in. I don't care. Your sensory connections are ready for that. They need that kind of enrichment, that kind of enticement. Okay? And then I said, look, now what I want you to do is I want you to basically expand that picture, make it brighter and brighter, bigger and bigger, more powerful. Turn up the volume on it. One of the things that Bandler will do is spin things. Keep going, make it bigger, give it more energy, spin it if you have to. But make it as big as possible. You're going in the total opposite direction. You're taking the energy out of the pain and you're imbuing energy into the pleasure. And I had her do that exercise. It took us 6 weeks, and in 6 weeks she made her trip and she successfully completed her mission. So you can do the same thing. I mean, we're all made from the same materials. So again, the swish pattern is a very powerful pattern. Planting your 7 seeds of change. Map out your most important desired final outcomes, because again, if you don't know what you're doing, you can't get there. Life is all about following a map to a destination. If you don't know what the destination is, how are you going to basically put a map together? So map out your most important desired final outcomes. Always look at the end first. There's a great saying that successful people look at the end. People who fail look at all the mishigas to get there. Number 2, diagnose all the resistant beliefs that separate you from flow. I always say, in the system that I teach, I always say, you know what? If you distill energy down to 2 things, it's 2 things. It's flow or it's resistance. You're either in the state of flow or in the state of resistance. There's no other place for you to be. There's no third place. Nothing stops. Nothing stops. One of the things you learn in Chinese medicine is that energy is in the constant state of flux. And disease is really nothing more than somebody being resistant to that movement. You got a place you're supposed to be in your life, you got people you're supposed to be with, you got things you're supposed to do, but your mind says, no, I'm staying right here. You're not in the state of flow, you're in the state of resistance. And chances are better than good if you're resisting against nature that you'll be in the state of disease. So diagnose all your resistant beliefs that separate you from flow. Number 3, diagnose your patterns of blocked states. Patterns and states. Okay, when somebody says, look, I'm in a state right now, it's not a good state. It's an emotional state that I'm in right now that's negative. Well, okay, that's a state. The only thing worse than a negative state is repeated negative states that are called patterns. So you need to find out what your patterns are. Hey, I see myself doing that often. That's a thing. I end up doing that a lot. That negative state thing, I keep tripping into it. It's a pattern. Replace block states with flowing thought patterns, like erase and replace. Open things back up. Get the energy to move yet again. Schedule a sequence of events leading up to your desired final outcomes, just like we said with timelines. Like the woman, I basically wanted her, as we went through our program, I said, I want you to close your eyes and envision yourselves in the water to your feet. Just up to your feet. So I'll see you in a week, but for the next week, you're just going to think about you being in the water up to your ankles. Don't go past your ankles in your mind. Okay, so sequence your way through it. Number 6, take positive action every day. You have to engage in positive action every day. You can't say, okay, I got the plan, I got the map, see you later. That doesn't work. You have to take positive action every single day. And it can't be fluffy action. Okay? There's a great saying that I love to repeat all the time. Whatever you can't do, you must do. That's essential. Whatever it is that really gets you most uptight is exactly where you got to go. Number 7, learn to accept that every outcome brings you closer to your destiny. Like I said earlier, failure is a myth. Failure is a myth. Okay, everything that you do brings you some degree closer to somewhere because you're not allowed to stand still. You know, like the ancient Chinese say, energy is everywhere, it's in the constant state of flux, so at the very least, you're on an escalator. So you can think you're standing still, but you can't. You're not allowed. Everything has to move, just like everything around you. All of nature all around you is constantly moving and changing. Well, you're part of that. You constantly change as well. We are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. And that is so true. This is one of my favorites. It's not them, it's you. It's not there, it's here. It's not then, it's now. The operatives are, it's you, it's here, it's now. If you remember nothing else, you remember that. It's you, it's nobody else. There's nobody to blame. There's nobody else involved in your reality. It's all about your trip, your journey. It's right here. It's right within you. It's no place outside of you. And it's right now. You didn't come here to wait. You came here to engage. This is the time. So the key really is to understand that you have a life process that you came to grow, to evolve, to change, not to remain the same, to reach to higher levels of possibility, to limitless possibility. And there are no limits to where you can go, especially when you create and redesign positive realities in your mind. So back to where I started this evening. Unfortunately, a great deal of disease is roped up, is tied up in circumstantial reality. People basically embrace the fact that it's somebody else, it's some other place, like the woman that basically was convinced in her mind that because she was traumatized by someone who drowned in front of her that she couldn't get around that. But it was her belief. It wasn't the experience. There's a great saying again, that it's not conditions, it's decisions. Stephen Covey. It's not conditions, it's decisions. It's always decisions. It's not the conditions. Every time you blame a condition, you disempower yourself. You take power away. The sooner you accept the responsibility for the real power that you have, the sooner you'll move past wherever it is that you are. Unless you're embracing wherever it is that you are and don't know it. But you have the power to get past that place. And again, like I said earlier, if you don't move past that place, then disease will set in. Okay, I think that's pretty much it with these. I hope I changed your mind. Any questions about anything we talked about, any of the studies or anything yet?
So, lots of wonderful scientific examples you've gone through, and how individuals have been given exercises that change them in some way, their health, their mental state,
right.
The woman who can't swim. And it seems to me there's a common thread there.
Yep.
That is, none of these people probably ever paid attention to themselves in the past either.
Well, you're probably right about that.
Time out to pay attention to themselves. That is self-love.
Well, it's my theory that people, just based on what I've seen over the 27 years that I've been doing what I've been doing, because I tend to pay pretty close attention to what I feel. And what I feel with most people that I counsel is that we all come from this place, this derivation of self-contempt. I think by nature, it's sort of like we come from this place where we're not particularly sold on ourselves. We're not this enough, we're not that enough, because I think societally, we're striving to go to this imaginary place through a certain set of systems. That's kind of like if you buy our product, you'll be thinner, you'll be smarter. It's kind of like Wayne Dyer talks really. It's a great little thing he talks about. The new pharmaceutical commercials. He said, I can't believe it. He says, I turned on the TV one night, and he said they were having this commercial. There was this guy digging clams, and he said he was just digging clams. And there wasn't much dialogue, there wasn't much going on. But the impression that you got was, if you take this drug, you'll be really good at digging clams. And then, before you know it, there's going to be, Mary Jane running into her doctor, because they're saying, ask your doctor, Hey, my best friend is an ice skater. I want to be an ice skater too. Can you give me the purple one, So the idea that people are disempowered with regards to being able to have that connection to source within them and that ability to make dramatic changes in their lives and to have the power to become whatever it is that they really have the dream to become is something that they feel separated from because of this self-contempt that says, look, like I said earlier, you need other. We don't give power to self. We don't trust self. We're not taught to trust self. Let me do that for you. You're going to burn your finger. Or you take our drug like you're a great clam digger. So the idea is that if it's part of the system. It's like if you buy our product, we'll enhance your life. I mean, you turn on the infomercials on a Sunday morning, that's pretty much the message you get. Now, some of those products, may have enhancing value, but that's not the point. The point is I think we're taking the emphasis away from self and potentiation of self. So my whole mission is to say, look, it's all about awakening people. Just wakening people up to the reality of the power of self. Everybody has the same source. Everybody has the same origin. Everybody comes and goes to the same place in the final analysis. Comes from the same place and goes back to the same place. So, there's these incredible, phenomenal realities that are sort of on the periphery of who we are. But we're not really indulged in terms of what we can get out of the middle of it while we're here. So I think we're sort of bred or programmed to be somewhat codependent. And I think that, when we talk about preventive medicine, you think about the present medical system, we have a medical budget, the healthcare budget in America, $2.1 trillion. $2.1 trillion. 1% allocated for prevention. And that means a colonoscopy. So, I mean, they're not getting anything done. They're not inspiring us. They're not teaching us. Do you think they honestly want us to be better at taking care of ourselves? Come on, that's crazy. It's crazy. It's not the way it's set up. So, my whole point is that I think that's been taken away from us, and I think it's our job to get it back. That's why when I read earlier, what's wrong with the present healthcare system? Us. It's not the doctors. It's not the system. It's not the FDA or anything else. It's us. The sooner we awaken to ourselves and the more we demand to get our power back and really take the time to, as you point out, connect with self-love and the limitless possibilities that exist, that's when things change. Anybody else? Yeah.
Yeah, the question had some great ideas, and you went through them fast, and it's hard to write them fast. Can we go on that website and find something?
Yeah, I'll make sure that I put these up on the website. If anybody wants these, usually after I give a talk, I throw those up for a while. So if anybody wants to grab those notes, I'll make sure that they're up there. I'll give me a day to get them up, and I'll get them up for you. Yep. Anybody else? Yes.
Could you just give an example of the kinds of ways that you told the people in the study, when a negative thought comes in, delete it?
Yeah. Well, you know something? I'll tell you, but I didn't, because I didn't have to tell them. They came back. No, listen. Here's what I want to say. I want to say that when you go back out into your world, I'll bet you, and everybody in here, same thing. You'll find the same exact thing that they did. I'll guarantee it. Once I open up your radar, click, your radar went on tonight. you'll turn the car radio on and you'll start hearing people spew negative stuff. And you'll go home, turn the TV, and there'll be negative stuff. And then you'll hear somebody at home and somebody tomorrow at work or whatever. And you're going to start seeing, because everybody was coming in saying, you know what, it's everywhere. It's unbelievable. And then when you try to, I said, well, what do you do about that? I asked them, I said, well, are you talking to people? Are you tolerating? They said, you know something? I try talking to them. I try giving them a different perspective. And then it gets to the point where I'm getting impatient with them and I don't want to be in their presence as much. So, it's like, hey, wake up here. We don't have to do this. And it's important for you to tune in with what you're producing, because what you're producing is making you what you are. Those thoughts create you. So, people need to kind of just be conscious of it and work with it. But I think, look, it's not complicated. I mean, it's like we said a little while ago. I mean, I remember my mom when I was a kid used to always say, I can't help it. That's a classic, But, you have patience and tolerance for folks. But you just want to observe it. Just want to observe it. Anybody else?
For a first-time reader, would you recommend any specific work of Bandler?
Yeah, I like the Transformation book quite a bit. I think it's a fairly new book. I think it might be his most recent book. But T-R-A-N-C-E, Transformation. Because there's a lot of really good swish patterns and good exercises at the end of each chapter, which is why I like it so much. They're short chapters. They're stacked up pretty good with information and with tips on exercises that you can engage in. But you can actually engage in those exercises in there really easily, really simply. But Richard Bandler, B-A-N-D-L-E-R. But it's sort of like we did with Joe here earlier, and like a lot of the muscle testing work that we do. What I contend is that your nervous system is never, ever out of communication with you. Your nervous system is talking constantly. It's a constant flow of information. And it's coming from you. So the hard part is getting over the self-contempt hangover. Can I really trust me? Yeah, you can. There's a great thing in Scripture. It's talked about all the time. I am that I am. I always say people emphasize the wrong words in that. It's not the I am parts, it's the that. I am that one. I'm not that one. And you are that one too, but you just don't know it. Everybody has a higher self, lower self. I always say when you pray, you don't pray out. This whole thing, the divine being up in a cloud with a bunch of harps and angels. That's goofy. That's crazy. Get out of that thing. God is with it. You pray in. Dare to pray in. Try it. You don't have to pray out anymore. Just tell them I sent you. If we get in trouble after we all die, I'll take the hit. All right? But if you think in terms of the divine possibilities that you have, once you exercise that power, once you make those connections, yeah, you can trust whatever information you get. And I always remind people, you're not doing brain surgery with a butter knife. When I'm asking, hey, Joe, chocolate. Oh, we can't trust that. That's heresy. At the very least, it's fun. Which is probably why it's heresy. But you're going to get information back. So you know what I say? Start tabulating and keeping the results. But keep it simple. Ask simple, harmless questions. About your diet. About your vitamins. About your lifestyle. About your choices. Simple, simple. Keep it simple. Harmless questions. And let your mind and your brain and your nervous system talk to your body, and let your nerves and your muscles either load up with some power or shut down because it's not feeling positive about whatever prospects you're hitting it with. It's that simple. This is not a complicated thing. That's why I say most systems of muscle testing are these very complicated chiropractic things, and that's okay. That's all right. There's some magnificent, Dr. George Goodhart was a dear friend of mine for years. Brilliant, but it's just different. We all have a different perspective. One of the things I just wrote about, I'm rewriting a bunch of the old books. We're reissuing the books, republishing the books. And one of the things I just wrote about and that I added to one of the books is this idea of two kinds of Chinese medicine. There's classic and traditional. Nobody ever makes that distinction. Nobody ever talks about that. Traditional Chinese medicine was adapted for Western life. It wasn't adapted for the ancient, mystical, spiritual influence of Chinese medicine. Traditional Chinese medicine was basically to bringing an old form into a modern, mechanistic medical society so that we wouldn't scoff at it, so that we'd put acupuncture needles in hospitals. That's why we did that. Classical Chinese medicine is about spirituality. It's about mysticism. It's about power. It's about thought. It's about the magic in you. It's about awakening you to the potentials of your magic. It's about opening you up to limitless possibilities. It's about expanding you. It's about stretching you. It's about encouraging you to have fun in your own mind, with your own life, by daring to go beyond the parameters, by daring to heal yourself, by daring to have more power than the doctor, by daring to have more power than anybody thought you could have or should have or deserve. That's what it's about. So getting into the stream of dialogue when the arm goes up and saying, okay, chocolate, potatoes, strawberries, it's not going to hurt anybody. You keep records of it. You keep track of it. You tell me what you find. I find people got better over 27 years, so I haven't stopped doing it yet. And I'm still going to encourage people to do that work themselves. I was talking to somebody on the Today Show, a producer of the Today Show, because I've been working with two different producers now at the Today Show that were talking about having me come on to do some work. And they had me list a bunch of different possible segments that I would do. And the first one that I mentioned was muscle testing. And the second one was muscle testing. They said, well, you really want to get on to do that? I said, yeah, I do. I don't want to get on there and be a comma. You know, I don't want to get on there and just say, hey, everybody should eat lots of berries. They got a bunch of people doing that already. I said, I want to get Matt's arm up and I want to really puzzle him and I want to make it real simple and understandable because that's easy to do. It's not complicated. I presented it as simply as I possibly could. And the key is to really encourage and challenge people to listen to themselves with a sense of self-appreciation. You know, there's a great expression about appreciation and depreciation. You know, when you buy a car and you drive it off the lot, it depreciates like 20%. I always say when people go out of the womb, they depreciate about 20%. You know? So what I want people to do is start to reappreciate themselves if they possibly can find a way to do that. You know, and the idea, yes? Well, first of all, you can do it, but I would encourage you to find somebody you love. You know, because it puts two people together. You know, and anytime you're doing that with somebody, you're establishing rapport. And if you can establish rapport with somebody to try to find out some really important issues, great. But, you know, if you think about what you're doing, okay, you're basically asking your brain to send a message through your nervous system. So there are ways to put your fingers like that, nice and tightly together, and to try to run my finger through that. From my work, I'd say that's about 50% reliable. And I'd say when you have a deltoid muscle of a fairly strong person that you can do like Joe and I did, you're about, for the work that I do, about 95 to 97% reliable. By the way, anybody know what the OTA is? The Office of Technology Assessments. In Washington, D.C., there's a group called the OTA. They're no longer in business because of the economy and all that stuff. But for about 40 years, it's about 60 different employees, government employees, they were paid by taxpayer dollars to assess the efficiency of medicine in America. And in 1997, they estimated that 86% of all medicine practiced in America, 86% of all medicine practiced in America was subjective guesswork. 86% was subjective guesswork. That's a doctor saying, yeah, I think I'm going to put you on an antibiotic. I think you got a bacteria. Okay? So the point is, if the OTA assesses that 86% of medicine is guesswork, then why shouldn't you have a right to pass a few guesses about yourself? So get your arms up, ask your bodies, start to learn to trust yourself, and it's like anything else. You're having a brand new relationship. You'll get better at it as you work at it. But who should be better knowing about you than you? The last time I checked, you've been living with you. These people that are giving you answers about you have the machinery, they have the degrees, they have the intimidation factor, and they have inculcation power behind them, but they don't have your innate wherewithal. They don't have your self-love, and if you don't, get it. But the objective really is to trust yourself, to make a connection with yourself. This is your wonderful life process. Designed to be magical, designed to be limitless, mystical, and whatever wonderful things you wish it to be. The objective is to get people like you in the same pool that I got that woman into. There's a pool called life. It's a place of playfulness, it's a place of fun, it's a place of enjoyment. There's a wonderful thing that Wayne Dyer talks about all the time. I met him down in Florida at the book convention a number of years ago, and we traded books and we talked for quite a while. And he talked about how, he said, there's an awful lot of people that say, when you hit them with the happiness thing and the pleasure thing and the mystical, joyous, limitless, take a bite out of life kind of concept, he says, they say, but I got somebody home that's sick, or I've got, very serious problems with my kids, or I've got some very serious economic disaster going on right now. And you know what Wayne said? A beautiful thing. He said, no one can ever feel bad enough to help somebody else feel good. No one can ever be miserable enough or broken-hearted enough or sick enough or sad enough to make anybody else heal. So we take on this image that if somebody or something is really, really dark in my life, I can't be joyous. Like heck. You can choose to be that way. It's sort of like, the folks in the research that Dr. Richard Davidson was doing at Wisconsin. What if I don't really feel happy? Dr. Davidson, should I keep telling myself that I feel happy and healthy? What kind of question is that? It's like the story of the guy who was asked, he had a bad cold and he was sneezing, and he said, how long have you been sick? And he says, in 3 weeks it'll be a month. So it's really important that you understand that you make these choices, you wire yourself, and you create your reality based on these thought patterns. Okay? Let's get late. Let's take one or two more quick questions. Anybody else? Anybody else? In terms of the muscle testing that we've been doing and that we talked about earlier tonight, it does fit into the equation of what we were talking about. If there's, let's get one other. Anybody a new volunteer? Anybody? Yes, come on up. You.
Good, how are you?
Good, I like your answer. Good. And I like your handshake.
Good. I'm glad.
Good, I'm going to have you raise up and make a fist there, good and strong and resist. And close your eyes. All right, I'm going to tune her up, and that's a term that I often use. And I want you just to think of the images in your mind. And what I want you to think of right now is I want you to think of a mother and a child embracing and resist. Nice and tight. Okay? Keep your eyes closed. I want you to envision 9/11. A horrible, tragic day. Yeah, but that was you, darling, not me. Raise up again. Resist good and strong. Okay, so we tuned up because if I say love, if I say hate, raise up again. If I say light, if I say rage, you understand? Okay. Well, you're producing a matching chemistry, as I said a little while ago. Resist good and strong. A little bit higher. Let's bias you up here. Now let's take arbitraries. Let's take arbitraries. Now, some of those were quite obvious. When I say 9/11, love, these are very obvious contrasts that are very powerful so that a mind can grasp those real easily. But arbitraries, if I say things like dairy, raise up again. If I say cheese, what happens? Doesn't feel so great, does it? How about if I say rice? Okay. Now let's get a concept for that. Let's ask your mind-body, if I feed you the notion that between 1 and 10, 10 being the highest number, so a plus 10 means that rice is about as good as it gets. So what number would rice be according to your mind-body? Rice for you is a plus 1, plus 2. Okay, so it's a plus 2. Okay, raise up again, good and strong. If I say something like spinach, plus 1, plus 2, plus 3, plus 4, plus 5, plus 6, plus 7. Pretty good. So she's going to go home and have a big bag of spinach.
I've been eating it for like the last 3 weeks.
Good instincts. All right, so resist good and strong. What about if I throw some arbitrary things at you again here? What about if I say the number 1, the number 2, the number 3? Raise up again, the number 4, 5, 6. Raise up again. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, now people wonder why numbers might do that. There's been a number of different studies at UCLA Medical Hospital that suggest that different times in life, periods in life when things happen, at ages, for example, if something happened at a certain age that maybe you don't remember, that you could actually have that sort of frozen in your subconscious, and it reacts. Remember we said the subconscious remembers and reacts. So those could be age responses. It could be something that happened when you were a child that you don't remember. So it's not always easy to determine why something is the way it is. It's certainly relatively easy, as you can see, to determine what it is, though. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So really, I think what we're doing with this system is very simply tapping into our own nervous system. That's all I would suggest that it is. So again, the message tonight is to really get you to start listening to you tapping into you trusting you, and do it in a playful way. Like I say repeatedly, we didn't do brain surgery with a butter knife here. We didn't threaten anybody's well-being. Okay? We're encouraging people like yourselves to get more involved in their own prevention. Again, you're not going to get preventive health care in this country unless you engage it. Like we've said, what's wrong with the medical system? Us. That's what's wrong with it. Some of the simple things we can do is start to develop enjoyable ways to find out answers about our own lives from within our own nervous systems, because our nervous systems are the dialogue system that never stops talking. It's always got an opinion about everything, and it's got an opinion that will affect your immune system, your nervous system, and your cardiopulmonary system, etc., etc. So it's really important that you think in terms of engaging your mind, your nervous system, through your muscles, and asking some of these questions and looking for some of these answers. And like we said with some of these exercises too, the neuroplasticity exercises, if you take the time to grow new nerve networks, because don't forget, we showed you the rate at which you're growing nerve networks is astounding. The time must be taken, however, to really cultivate those new nerve networks around positive imagery. So you want to think, like we said, about what it is that you want to change. You need to know what you want to change. I always say, know it, show it, grow it. Know it, show it, grow it. Know what it is, show it to yourself, and constantly repeat it over and over and over. Know it, show it, and grow it. So if you don't know what it is, that's your first job. Know what it is. Know what you want to get rid of. Like we said, you get to prune or delete out, and you get to basically add in input, cut in with new information. So you need to know what you want to move out, what you want to replace it with. In the case of the woman we talked about, it was easy. It was easy. She wanted to basically edit out the trauma, and she wanted to replace it with the joyous picture that she ultimately did. That was a very clear, powerful picture. But whatever your next space, that next door we talked about earlier, you need to know it. Where is that next space in your life? Where's that next door? The universe never stops flowing forward. It's always in the state of motion. For you to be well, you have to be whole. You can't be well unless you're whole. And you can't be whole unless you're in movement, unless you're in flow. Because there's only flow or resistance. There's nothing else. If you're resisting flow, you're not whole. And if you're not whole, you're not well. So the objective really is to get in flow. In order to be in flow, you have to know exactly where you need to flow to. Where is that next place that the universe is trying to say, come on, let's go. There's a beautiful set of possibilities here. A lot of crossroads. You don't get one option. You get all kinds of different possibilities. You don't get to stand in place without being resistant and without suffering disharmony. So the key really is for you to know what that is, get in touch with it, in tune with it, and then once you've done that, you want to show it to yourself before you fall asleep at night. You want to show it to yourself before you wake up in the morning. And whenever you're spacing out, or you can create trances. That's in part what a visualization, what a meditation is. So you can generate a trance state. You don't have to wait for them early morning and late at night. Those are great places because you're always in trance in those places as you transition your consciousness. But you can also pick a place and say, you know what, this is a lovely day to be sitting by this pond, or this is a great way to just kind of kick back at the beach or whatever. And when you're doing that, you just go into a deep, relaxed state and create a beautiful vision. Create a beautiful vision that you can replace a negative old picture with. If you heal your psyche if you heal your consciousness, if you heal your subconscious mind, you'll heal your eternity. And that's the most important part, is whatever you do heal through your subconscious mind, and your superconscious mind especially, you heal for an eternity. So you'll change you, you'll change the people around you, and you'll change the universe. There's no question in my mind about it. All right, well, I thank... Yes? Oh, a raffle.
Thank you, Santi, Holistic Healing in Cohasset Village.
Okay. All right.
For a free massage. 12 Pumpkin Way in Cohasset.
All right.
Thanks again. I just want to let folks know that Mark will be doing another presentation, natural healing, and for the whole family. So each of you got one of these. It's Thursday, June 11th at the Red Lion Inn in Cohasset. And it's $20 per person. And you can call the Santi Holistic Healing Center.
You're asking the wrong guy. I don't know.
Who's the winner?
The winner is Colleen Mullen.
Colleen?
Come on, you got to come up. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, another drawing. Okay. Drawing for a facial. Let's see.
Thank you, Dolores. Dolores is in Plymouth.
Kathy Duggan.
Kathy. Yeah.
Is Kathy here? Kathy Duggan. Okay. Well, should we pick another one, or we?
Yeah, you have to be a... What is it?
You have to be here, or it doesn't count. That's what the rules. That's what the drawing rules are. The official drawing rules. All right.
Are they winning a facial? Or reflexology.
Diane Dewberry.
Diane Dewberry. Oh,
She's not here either. Okie dokie. Wait a minute. How did those names get in there?
They were here earlier. They had to leave.
Okay. Let's see. Lisa Ferraro. Is she here? Yes. Wonderful. All right, do I give her anything, or you want to connect with her? Okay. All right. I just want to basically sign off here for a minute. I just feel that the most important words that I want to leave you with are that you have powers that are untapped. I see it every single day, and I can't live another day after 27 years of seeing all the faces that I've seen without reminding everybody in this room and every place that I go, any chance that I get, that there's a you that has yet to come forth, and it's only up to you to allow it to happen. So I wish that the mystical self comes to life in every life in this room, and that limitless possibility comes forth in your lives, and that you learn to live joyously, fully, as whole and healed as you can. God bless you.